where we encounter a narrative of a crime is really important because it can shape how we view the crime and what lens we're kind of looking at it in. If we see a police report or a journal entry, we might see that as a more accurate representation of what happened, what happened in the police report and the journal, what happened from the journaler's point of view perspective. Can kind of give us more insight into that. People don't usually lie in their journals, and if they did, we would kind of know the headspace of the criminal. If we are listening to a podcast or watching the news, we know they're kind of trying to tell a story a bit, embellish it a little bit. They're still trying to basically tell us all the facts, but there is still, they make their money based off of views and how much interest people show in it. So we know they're in it for reasons other than purely reporting the truth. Although a lot of times there is primarily truth in that. But in the case of a story, whether it be a movie, whether it be a book, TV show, those we know they're just trying to entertain us. So movies sometimes they paint somebody doing a bad thing or a crime as like a good thing. They make them out to be the good guys. For example, Robin Hood, where that's a bit more of a toss-up, but in the legal sense, he's stealing from people, and that's a crime. And so they're able to paint this picture as one that makes the criminal the good guy when he's still committing crimes. And that one, people's morals often will disagree with the crime that's being committed, but when you're talking about crimes and the laws, your morals don't really matter. Like, the law doesn't care. And so that's important to remember. It's also important to remember who's narrating it, right? So a police officer is going to tell a story that makes the police sound like the good guys. A news anchor is going to tell the story in a way that supports his or her views on the subject that happened. We see this a lot in politics. Both sides do this a lot, where they'll twist a headline or paint somebody in a certain light, where when you actually read both sides of the story, what all the news articles are saying, oftentimes it's a pretty normal thing that one side's just going to blow out of proportion. So it's really important to remember who's narrating it. And then it's also important to remember the context and the narratives that they're trying to push with it. For example, what's his name? Steve Case. He talked in his video about crimes and the meaning of crimes changing over time. And so if you're able to understand that, you can understand better why, when you're reading a story from the 1990s, somebody smoking weed, for example, is like a crime, and they're like they're kind of like a bad boy or whatever. But if you read that story now, it's like it's legal, like it's not a crime anymore. And so it's kind of important to understand that when you're reading a story. And then if you understand the narrative that's being pushed on you, and that everyone's trying to push a narrative, it can help you think and understand and act accordingly, rather than just hearing the story and acting immediately off emotion. So